Love, Death, and Robots. Sounds like the Blood, Sex, Gore, and Magic show. I feel like I should get a cut. Hey, Netflix, call your boy up. And hello, ladies and gentlemen, non-binary, transgender, and everything in between, folks. Welcome to my safe haven. You could have been anywhere, but you decided to stop by the Black Gay Comic Geek YouTube channel for a review of Love, Death, and Robots. This microphone doesn't even work, so I don't even know why I'm using it, but here we are. We're going to talk about Love, Death, and Robots Volume 2, so let's begin. This is what happens when you're in the house for the last 8 months, not really going anywhere, because A, you're on lockdown, and B, you've been laid off pretty much the whole time. I need a life, and probably some friends that don't have kids, so they're not too busy for me. Help me. But anyway, yes, I just finished Love, Death, and Robots Volume 2. But before we get into that, also, this will be a non-spoiler review, so don't worry about if you haven't watched it yet. But before we get into my thoughts for that, this is something I feel like I need to do at the beginning of every video. If you can please do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button while you're watching this video to help with the YouTube algorithm. I can't stress that enough, because I'll go back and look at some of my videos and they'll get 400 views or even 1,000 views or whatever, and it'll get 30 likes on the video. Even if you dislike the video, hit the dislike button. Just engage and interact, because that tells YouTube to push the video out there, and it'll get my channel and everything like that to continue to grow, so I can continue to be on my journey like the Flintstones kids. We're 1 million strong and growing, so I can increase the Black Gay Comic Geek multimedia whatever empire that is. I don't know. I just want this to be my full-time career and not have to look for a job when my unemployment runs out. But that's another story. But yeah, if you have not seen Love, Death, and Robots Volume 1, I definitely recommend checking that out. I actually reviewed it on my page, what was it, last year or the year before? I don't remember, but I reviewed it, so if you're interested in that, click that link right here and then come back here to check out my thoughts for Volume 2. But really quick, Love, Death, and Robots is just an anthology series of animated shorts made by different studio companies that are essentially tells the story of love, death, and robots. And they span many different genres, from sci-fi, fantasy, horror, action, comedy, etc. Biggest difference between this season and last season is the last season had 18 episodes, but this season only had 8 episodes. Not sure if they were affected by the pandemic or not, or they planned to only have the 8 episodes. But is this a case of quality over quantity? Let's talk about it. Now, I'm not sure if they're doing the same thing for Volume 2 that they did for Volume 1, but what they did for Volume 1 is randomly they would have the episodes in a different order. So you might not have the same episode order as your friend. So for example, my first episode for Volume 1 was the episode called Sonya's Edge, which was one of my favorite episodes. But my friend, his first episode was the Beyond the Aquila Rift, which was also one of my favorite episodes. So my first episode for Volume 2, which I'm not sure if they're doing the same thing, but my first episode was automated customer service. And funny enough, I literally just got finished watching The Mitchells versus the Machines. And if you haven't seen my review for The Mitchells versus the Machine, obviously after you're done watching this, you can go back and check that out as well. But the world just keeps telling us that at a certain point, the machines are going to take over the world. And then you also get it, which pretty much you get in this episode. Again, this is my non-spoiler review, but the premise of this episode is there's a robot called the VacuBot. It's basically like a smart robotic home cleaning service. But what happens when that home cleaning service becomes deadly? And I had fun with this episode. This episode was about 12 minutes. This episode was done by Blur Studios, who actually did one of my favorite episodes of Volume 1, which was Shapeshifters, the werewolf episode, because I love werewolves. And I keep saying I want to marry a werewolf. So yeah, I had fun with this episode, and the animation and the CGI and things like that was gorgeous. And I feel that way for pretty much the entirety of Volume 2. The animation style and CGI and everything like that, this show is just gorgeous to look at. Even in the episodes that you didn't really care for that much, you still find enjoyment in those episodes. And not even just the way they look, but just the creativity of the storyline. Even if you don't connect with it fully, you still appreciate the effort. But yeah, I had fun with the episode. It's just another episode that reminds me that at a certain point, it's going to be an apocalypse, whether it's a robot apocalypse, a zombie apocalypse, or hell, it might be both at the same time. The next episode on my order list was an episode called Ice, and it's basically just about two brothers who live on another world, and in this world, on this planet, basically everybody is a cybernetically enhanced human, which they call modded. Only one of the brothers, he's an outsider because he's the only person in the world on this planet that isn't modded. He's basically a normal human being. Think of it, if you are fans of My Hero Academia, think of it as like how Deku was in this world of quirks and how he was one of the only ones without a quirk. And this episode was made by Passion Animation Studios, which is the same people that did Zima Blue from Volume 1. And I mean, I thought this episode was decent. It was okay. It wasn't as good as, say, Automated Customer Service, but one thing I could definitely take from this episode is it was very beautiful to look at, and the animation was very interesting. And I mean, even though I didn't love it, I didn't hate it. It's not, again, because, you know, I'm not talking spoilers. There's only but so much I could say. And so, yeah, I mean, it was watchable. The next episode was called Pop Squad or Population Squad, again by Blur Studios. And basically the premise of this episode, which I really enjoyed this episode. I would definitely put this episode in my top 5. I'm still trying to think as I talk through these episodes which one is probably my favorite so far, but I'll get to that. But basically the premise of this episode is this idea of choosing between immortality and legacy. Like, do you want to live forever, or do you want to live forever in the sense of kind of like the Lion King? He lives in you, Mufasa, Simba. He's still alive because Simba, you are alive. And that's basically what this is. Like, do you want to grow up and have children and watch your children grow old, or do you want to live forever? You can't have both. And so because this world is pretty much overpopulated, because so many people are choosing to live forever, they have this police squad called the Pop Squad that will track down any human that decides to reject that immortality and have children. And so they go around killing all the children. And so then you follow around this one cop who may or may not begin to start to question the morals of murdering kids. And yeah, I thought this episode was beautiful. Again, done by Blur Studios. Blur Studios always does a great job based on this volume and then, of course, Volume 1. And honestly, this is one of the first episodes that I got to. You know, it's only episode 3. But I was like, I would totally like to see this as a longer form movie. Because most of these episodes didn't go beyond 18 minutes. That was the longest runtime of every episode, and this episode in particular was 18 minutes. I believe Automated Customer Service was 12 minutes, and Ice was also 12 minutes. So this was the longest episode of the 3 so far. And yeah, I would totally like to see this world explored more. I had a lot of fun watching this, and yeah, this episode was fun. Next episode on my watch list was called Snow in the Desert. It's done by Unit Image Studios, and basically it's a man, his name is Snow, and he's in the desert. And think of him like Wolverine of this world. He's like one of the only creatures in this world that has this super advanced healing factor. And so because of that, there's an entire bounty on his head because people want to chop him up, experiment on him, and figure out why he's able to heal so quickly so that they could use his regenerative properties for their own purposes. And so this is his survival story. And talk about another show and property that is just gorgeous to look at. Like, a lot of these shows or a lot of these episodes, you would think that they're actually like real life people acting out these scenarios. Like, there were certain moments where I was watching Snow in the Desert and I was like, this looks hella real. So I give all the props to Blur Animation Studios, Unit Image Studio. Like, yeah, the animation style for this show is just so freaking gorgeous. And I would say out of these 4 episodes, this episode so far had the most action and was the most compelling to watch, in my opinion. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I would probably say Snow in the Desert would go on my number 1 as my favorite episode of the series. Or not the series, but my favorite episode of this season so far. My favorite episode of the series is still Shapeshifters. Next episode on the list, you have The Tall Grass, which was made by Axis Animation Studios. And it actually kind of reminds me of like a Stephen King horror property, which actually, he does have a movie called In the Tall Grass, which is on Netflix. I haven't seen it. But it's basically about this man who finds himself in like a tall cornfield-like thing of grass. And he might not be alone in that grass. So what could possibly be there? So you see the creatures or whatever that are in this grass. And so, yeah, I mean, it was okay. It was watchable, or as Chris Stuckman said in his most recent review, it was aggressively watchable. was nothing like amazing about it, but it wasn't like terrible. And the next episode is All Through the House by Blink Studios. Talking about things that I would like to see expounded upon. This short film, it was only 7 minutes, I think. I loved this episode and I love this premise, and I would totally want to see this expanded into a larger like horror movie franchise, because this was great. And actually, like, the more I'm talking about it, I'm like, because I did really enjoy Snow in the Desert, but I'm like, just this premise alone, I'm like, I'm gonna say this is probably, yeah, I'm gonna go with it. This probably is my favorite episode of the whole series, and Snow in the Desert is like it's like right there. They're like fighting for number one, because I just thought this was so interesting. Basically, it's these kids, it's Christmas morning or Christmas night, and you know, Santa's coming, premise of Santa, and so these kids are staying up trying to see if they can catch a glimpse of Santa Claus. And boy, do they catch a glimpse of Santa Claus. Once they actually show the reveal of what Santa actually looks like, I was like, oh, give me more of this, please. And it actually kind of reminded me of something that happened in Buffy the Vampire Slayer during the episode, one of the best episodes of the show, called The Body, which was the death of Joyce Summers, and they do a flashback to them celebrating Christmas, and Anya reveals that Santa Claus actually is real in this world, but he doesn't so much bring presents as, you know, disemboweled children. And that's what I was thinking of when I saw this episode. I was like, this is Anya all over again, but what you think may happen isn't exactly what ended up happening. But what does happen, again, I want to see more from this world. Like, I freaking loved All Through the House, and just the way that it was animated and the reveal of Santa and even the voice, I was like, oh, give me. I felt like Oliver Twist. It was like, please, sir, can I have some more? And episode 7 for me was the episode called Life Hutch. If you saw the trailer, this is the episode with Michael B. Jordan. This episode was also done by Blur Studios. Blur Studios did a lot of episodes this particular season. And it reminded me of the episode from last season called Lucky 13. And just in how realistic that it looked, even more so than, say, Snow in the Desert. Like, it just looked like Michael B. Jordan was acting this whole thing and they just put it like a CGI frame over him. And while this episode looked beautiful and it was interesting, and I would totally maybe like to see more of this sci-fi world, I was just like, it was enjoyable, but it wasn't like, I wasn't as hyped as I was at, say, Snow in the Desert or even All Through the House. But yeah, it was decent. And basically the premise of this episode is Michael B. Jordan's ship crash lands on a planet, and so he tries to find a way to escape. But when he finds a small refuge in a secluded little like building, he comes across a malfunctioning robot. Again with these killer robots. And now he has to try to figure out how to survive this killer robot. And yeah, again with the killer robots. I mean, I'm here for it. I love the, you know, the sci-fi fantasy. This was the robots part of Love, Death, and Robots. And yeah, like I said, it was decent. But yeah, then we get to the final episode. The final episode is called The Drowned Giant, again done by Blur Studios. And basically the premise of it, you know, based on the title, The Drowned Giant, a giant man washes on shore of a beach, and the whole world is fascinated, and they're trying to figure out, what is this? What could this possibly mean? And some people, because it's a giant, something that they've never seen before, some people may end up taking souvenirs. But then you follow this one man who's completely fascinated by this concept, and so you're following his narration as you're hearing his inner thoughts of this new creature that you find on this earth. And yeah, this episode was done by Blur Studios, so the animation, of course, was great. But in terms of like my hype level for it, I mean, again, it was a very interesting premise, a very interesting concept, and an interesting episode. But it was just like, I wouldn't be mad if I didn't watch it again. And so with that said, those are all the 8 episodes of Volume 2. I would honestly say I prefer Volume 1 way more than I prefer Volume 2. Now, that doesn't say that Volume 2 isn't worth watching. I really enjoyed Volume 2, and I'm super excited to see this franchise continue with a Volume 3, which I think was announced, and I think Volume 3 is supposed to come out next year. But I would love to see a Volume 3, Volume 4. Like, I really enjoyed the Love, Death, and Robots. And with that said, there also wasn't a whole lot of love this season in the whole Love, Death, and Robots, but I was still enjoyed this season. But I do feel like, even though there were episodes in season 1 that I didn't care for, I feel like the episodes that I liked, I loved in season 1. And for this season, there were episodes that I liked. And the 2 episodes that I really loved, Snow in the Desert and All Through the House, like, I super enjoyed those episodes. Like I said, those are like my top 2 episodes. But I feel like the rest of the episodes, again, they were enjoyable, but they were just like, I wasn't like, oh my God, that was so great. But then I think about season 1, I really liked the episode Suits, Beyond the Aquila Rift, Shapeshifters, Lucky 13. There were a bunch of other episodes that I can't think of the titles right. Oh, Sonya's Edge, that I just really enjoyed. And I was like, oh, I would love to see more of an expansion on all of these episodes that I enjoyed. But for this season, it was just like, yeah, I enjoyed some of these. I don't think I would necessarily like to see more from this world. So I would say based on that, again, it's definitely worth watching, but I really enjoyed season 1 better than I did season 2. So for this season, I would say season 2 of Love, Death, and Robots, for me, I would give it a high hit. But season 1, I would definitely give a blockbuster. But the question is, have you guys seen season 2 or volume 2 of Love, Death, and Robots? What were some of your favorite episodes? Let me know down in the comment section below. Also, which season did you like more, volume 1 or volume 2? Let me know that again in the comment section below. Also, if you can, hit that thumbs up button, please, 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 and like this video to really help out with the channel. And if this is one of your first time checking out one of my videos, please check out the other videos on my channel. And if you like what you see, please subscribe for more and hit that bell notification button so you're alerted every single time I post a new video. And tell your friends, families, and neighbors about my channel to help me continue to grow. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.